Well, hello there and welcome to Game of Thrones Season 3 Crammed. This is the one where all of the actors have gone through puberty, so I hope you've caught up with Seasons 1 and 2. Let's go! Samwell Tarly has escaped the fist of the First Men to the sounds of undead slaughter. White's attacked from the blizzard, but Mormont has organised a retreat back to the wall. Further north, Jon reaches the vast wildling army and gets his first sight of a giant. Black's not a popular colour to be wearing round here, but Jon presents himself to this likely warrior. However, this is the king beyond the wall, Mance Rayder. They test Jon's intent, but for now, he's in. Cersei pops in on Tyrion to make sure he doesn't plan on telling Daddy she tried to have him killed in a battle, and Podrick the Squire interrupts Bronn's private time to have him almost throw down with Cersei's gold cloaks before doubling his bodyguard fee. He's a knight now. Tywin gives Tyrion a hard time for the company he keeps, but the son is angry at getting no recognition from the father. Lord Tywin admits he did well in the defence, but hates Tyrion for what he is and will never let him inherit the Lannister home. Sansa is trying to forget the life that she's stuck in by chilling out with Shae, and Littlefinger offers promise of a real opportunity to leave with him, but his own right-hand whore warns Shae to watch out for her with him. The soon-to-be Queen Margaery puts on a great show visiting the orphans of King's Landing and winning over the people, something that Joffrey doesn't enjoy and that Cersei despises. So roll on awkward dinner. Sir Davos lives, washed up on a jut of rock at sea and rescued by the men of Salador Sand. It seems Melisandre has been burning more men alive since the retreat, and having lost his own son to fire, Davos plans to kill her in order to stop the corruption of his king. He faces them both on Dragonstone, but she has the king's ear and the Onion Knight is imprisoned. Robb marches on Harrenhal with Roose Bolton, and it doesn't look like the Mountain is there to defend it. Instead, all of the northern prisoners have been slaughtered and left to rot, including those close to all of the lords. But one man called Qyburn yet lives. Dany's on a ship to Astapor in need of an army. Her dragons are growing, the Dothraki are seasick, and Ser Jorah Friendzone thinks that buying unsullied, elite soldier slaves might be the way to go. Under the harpy of the city, she's invited to view the most elitely and horribly trained soldiers that money can buy. Totally obedient and without self-worth, this is a slave culture where humans are commodities, and it leaves a sour taste in Dany's mouth. While at the port, however, a child assassin of a warlock almost has her killed by a manticore sting, but she's saved by none other than Sir Barristan Selmy, who swears himself to her service. Bran dreams of family and a three-eyed raven, and then of another boy he's not yet met. They're still a long way from the wall. Lord Bolton brings some bad news for Robb and Catelyn. Her father has died at Riverrun, and Bolton's son that was sent to clear Winterfell reports Bran and Rickon missing, with Theon and the Ironborn gone. Lord Karstark calls things as they are, and thinks that a funeral at Riverrun is a waste of time. They've lost the Frey army since Robb broke his oath to them and married Talisa, who is at least connecting with Catelyn in her grief. In reality, Theon doesn't know where he is, but it's nowhere good. He's being tortured somewhere by various means, but this servant says he's been sent by his sister to help him escape later. Brienne is still walking Jaime south, and after some lip about Renly, there's a moment's insightfulness about we don't get to choose who we love. But on a bridge, he slips one of her swords with the intent to kill and escape. Brienne is a patient fighter, however, and Jaime's out of shape. Problem is, they've called attention to themselves, and they're both captured by Locke, one of Bolton's more unsavoury hunters. Cersei is back with some good advice for Joffrey, advising him to watch Margaery closely lest she win over the people away from him. But the king doesn't listen to anyone. Shae's getting protective over Sansa, and Sir Loras takes her for a visit to see Margaery and her grandmother, Olenna of House Tyrell. This lady is no fool and as sharp as a witch, and wants to know what kind of boy her granddaughter is marrying. Poor Sansa admits he's a monster, but Margaery is committed to being queen, so she also pretends that she's sort of into killing stuff, and Joffrey likes it. Mance tells Jon he's united all of the 7 different cultures and peoples that make up the wildlings, because he knows they'll all die unless they get south away from the others. Jon meets his first warg, Orell, who can enter the minds of animals and act as a scout, and he reports that the fist of the First Men is littered with dead crows. Those retreating survivors are giving Sam a hard time for not sending out the ravens, but Jon trained some of them to be better men. And in the woods, Bran meets a boy of his dreams. Osha doesn't want any guests, but he's not alone. Jojen Reed and his sister Mira have been searching for Bran, and some of his direwolf seems to give them the thumbs up. In this new fellowship, Jojen knows that Bran is a warg and has visions himself, while his fighting sister is kind where Osha is tough. Arya's group run into Thoros of Myr and the Brotherhood, part of a force that Ned sent out in Season 1 to hunt down the mountain before the shit got real. They've now devolved into a band of merry men, and after some banter they're about to let Arya go, but they've also caught the Hound, who lets on that she's a Stark. Catelyn's father is sent to rest on the River Trident, and we meet the Tullys. Her brother Edmure, not bad but not the best, and now Lord of Riverrun, and her cunning and independent uncle Brynden, the Blackfish. Edmure has caught some distant Lannister-related hostages, but it's actually fouled up some of Robb's war plans. Meanwhile, Catelyn mourns and Brynden is for Rock. Tywin power plays for small council, but Tyrion doesn't play along, and Littlefinger is to go and woo Catelyn's sister Lysa to bring the forces of the Vale to their side. So Tyrion's now master of coin. He picks up the ledgers from the brothel and gives Podrick some lady time as a thank you for saving his life, but discovers the crown is in huge debt to the Iron Bank of Bravos. Jaime warns Brienne that Locke's group are likely to rape her. They're a bad bunch, and despite fighting her himself, he does advise her not to get killed. That night, as she resists, Jaime lies about the Sapphire Isles Brienne is from, claiming her father is loaded and that she's worth a high ransom if she's alive. Locke buys the story, and she remains unmolested for now. But this is the wrong crowd to play with, and he cuts off Jaime's sword hand out of sheer cruelty. The wildling army discover the spiral scenes of gore left by the assault of the others. Only horses remain because the other dead men have risen again as whites. This blow against the Night's Watch is also an opportunity, so Mance sends Tormund and Jon to climb the wall with a small force and attack Castle Black from the rear, in part to test his true colours. Commander Mormont and the defeated make it back to Craster's Keep. It's a frosty reception, but he still lets them in. Gilly is next door giving birth with some of the daughter wives, and Sam pops in for a visit to discover she's given birth to a boy. Over in Astapor, Ser Jorah argues for an unsullied army. They all have their junk cut off and therefore wouldn't be an army of rapists. He's a bit jealous of Ser Barristan's presence, who wants them to leave the slave culture as they walk under the cast of a giant harpy. She agrees to sell one of her dragons to them in return for every single unsullied soldier they have, and she takes this translator slave girl too. This guy helps Theon to escape from his torture on a horse, but Theon has no idea where he is, and he's soon hunted down for sport, beaten, and then nearly raped before saved again by the same guy, who turns out to be quite the archer. On the road, he leads Theon to what should be his sister Yara and some loyal men. Out of sheer relief, Greyjoy laments his actions and admits that he didn't really kill the Stark boys, who were never found. But it's all a cruel joke. He's been led back to the torture chamber they started in and tied back to the cross for some more. Jaime is a broken man who's forced to have his rotting hand hung around his neck, made to drink horse piss, and beaten. Brienne tries to keep him going, however. She knows that he lied to stop her getting raped, but doesn't understand why. Varis tells Tyrion about how he was sold as a child to a warlock and had his privates, root and stem, cut off for dark magic, part of why he despises Stannis and his Red Witch. Instead of dying, Varis grew to become a thief, and then better, someone who stole information instead. And now this month's Loot Crate theme is warlocks from your past. At Craster's Keep, the remaining men of the Watch are cold and hungry, and an unusually high percentage of the survivors are scumbags. They turn on each other and kill both Craster and Commander Mormont. It's brother v brother, and Sam escapes with Gilly from the baby hut. The Brotherhood of Outbanners take Arya, Gendry, and the Hound to their secret hideout, where they're led by Beric Dondarrion, who is reborn and follows the same red god as Melisandre in order to aid the people. The Hound is accused for various crimes and is going to face Dondarrion in trial by combat. Marjorie and Joffrey are getting along over the wedding preparations, and she manages to give him a taste of being loved by the people for once. Cersei doesn't like the influence that she's having on him and wishes that she was in charge. She checks on Tywin to see what he's doing to find her brother Jaime, and it looks like he's busy writing a lot of letters. But to who? Dany trades a priceless dragon for all of the unsullied warriors in Astapor. Turns out that she's been betting on their unflinching nature of following orders all along, because once they're hers, she has them kill all of the wise masters and Drogon burns the slaver lord. She's freed the slaves of the city and leaves with an army at her side. Beric Dondarrion faces the Hound with a flaming sword in his trial. It's a desperate mess, but the Lord of Light sees fit for the Hound to win. Yet despite this, Beric remains undead thanks to the Red God and continues to lead the Brotherhood whilst the Hound is released. Gendry decides he likes this lot, so he's going to stay in Smithfordham, which breaks Arya's heart. But she's going to be ransomed back to the Starks for some gold, so they're kind of all on the same page. The wildling raiding party test Jon's knowledge of the Watch for their attack, but Ygritte backs his play, and he breaks his no-sex vows with her in a cave on the way to the wall. Locke takes Jaime to Harrenhal for Lord Bolton, who's not impressed at the mistreatment of the hostages, and that guy Qyburn they found earlier turns out to be a maester who is stripped of his chain for performing questionable research, but he manages to save the rest of Jaime's arm. At Riverrun, Lord Karstark is so eager for revenge he kills those two Lannister boys that Robb had as hostage. Robb's lost a lot of respect for losing Winterfell and for his mother releasing Jaime, so now he's forced to execute Karstark as his father would have and lose yet another huge part of his army. So now he needs to make amends with the Freys and apologise for not marrying one of Walder's daughters. Stannis finally visits his actual wife. She's mental and has put their stillborn babies in jars, but but totally pro Melisandre even if he bangs her. He also has a daughter with grayscale who's kind of shunned, but a sweet child nonetheless. So this Princess Shireen goes to visit Davos in his cell and teaches him to read to pass the time. Over a bath, Sir Jaime the Kingslayer admits that he killed the Mad King Aerys Targaryen because he was actually about to burn down the whole of King's Landing. This would have killed 500,000 people with wildfire when he was losing the war. Brienne doesn't know what to make of that. Marjorie makes friends with Sansa and plans to have her taken to Highgarden away from the Lannisters in order to marry Sir Loras after she's made queen. But Littlefinger finds out and tells Tywin the Lannisters won't let the key to the north be lost to the Tyrells, so they force Tyrion to marry her first, and even he thinks that's cruel. The smile's wiped off of Cersei's face, however, because father commands her to marry Sir Loras instead. With the baby, it's slow going for them to find their way back to the wall, but Gilly is wide-eyed at Sam's experience of the wider world, even though she's better at useful things like making fires. Jojen Reed's visions also give him seizures, but he sees Jon Snow and wildlings on the wrong side of the wall. Ygritte tells Jon that regardless of whose side they're on, it's all about the two of them from now on. She's kind of worried about his true allegiance, but Tormund's not, and he's a likeable guy. It's a brave climb for them all in the freezing winds, and the wall is a treacherous thing that defends itself. But Jon manages to save Ygritte just before they're cut loose by Orell. Despite their losses, they make it to the top of the world and view the north against the south. Melisandre goes to visit Thoros, Beric and the Brotherhood, seeing as they all share the same god. She's stunned at Thoros' power of resurrection, but has come to claim Gendry. She wants his king's blood for future sacrifices to help Stannis, and although Arya steps up, Melisandre sees a darkness in the girl's future before they leave. Theon is still being tortured by this guy, and today it's all about skinning fingers until he begs to have them cut off. Lord Walder Frey is still open to a continued alliance with the north, but he wants a lot of recompense, an apology, Harrenhal, and for Edmure Tully to marry one of his daughters in Robb's place. Edmure's not up for it, but he's gonna have to take the hit. Interestingly, Roose Bolton hasn't yet sent Jaime back to Robb, and over dinner the discussion turns towards still allowing him to reach King's Landing and earn the thanks of Tywin, but without Brienne in tow to claim Sansa and Arya in return. Tyrion discovers it was Joffrey who wanted him killed in battle, and he and Cersei also lament weddings they're not interested in for the good of the realm. Sansa was totally up for marrying Sir Loras, not that he cared, but Tyrion has to give her the fun news. She's not too happy about it. Varys was using one of Littlefinger's girls as an informer, so finding out, Peter gives her over to Joffrey for some murder fun and claims that chaos is a ladder for him to climb even higher. As Jon and the raiders make their way through the woods, Orell tries to come between him and Ygritte. Jon sees the bravery in the wildlings but knows they're doomed to fail in attacking the wall, and he's starting to care about that. And as Robb's force make their way up to the twins for the wedding to the Freys, he discovers Talisa is pregnant with his child. Marjorie tries to tell Sansa that Tyrion might not be that awful to marry, while Bronn tells Tyrion to grin and bear it, especially seeing as he can't marry a whore like Shae, who's giving him shit about marrying Sansa. You see, Tyrion has married a whore once in the past apparently, much to the anger of Tywin, who by the way has been summoned to report on all of his meetings to Joffrey. However, Tywin doesn't take shit from anyone, and counsels the king. He also tells Joff not to worry about the rumours of dragons overseas. Dany's marching army come from Astapor to the next great slaver city, Yunkai. They send out an envoy who suggests that she take some gold and continue on her merry way without attacking them, and they even offer her some ships to sod off on back to Westeros. Dany's got a taste, however, for releasing slaves and demands that the city release everybody in chains. Arya is angry at the Brotherhood for selling off Gendry and delaying in taking her home, so she runs off and is kidnapped by Sandor Clegane, who's been tailing the group since the trial by combat. Jaime swears to Brienne that he'll still return the Stark girls to Catelyn before Bolton sends him off with regards to Tywin. He further discovers some of the cruel experiments of Qyburn's past and realises Locke is more likely to torture and murder Brienne just for fun. So he forces his Bolton escort to return to Harrenhal, where he discovers she's being forced to fight a bear with a wooden sword. Jaime jumps in to save her and takes her south with him. Today in Torture Town, two girls entice Theon until he starts to get into it, only to be interrupted before he reaches satisfaction in order to have his dick cut off. Jojen informs Bran that his three-eyed raven visions relate to a man they must meet beyond the wall, but Osha stubbornly wants to go to Castle Black. She knows how terrible things are beyond there, because her own husband returned from the dead to attack her before she escaped south. However, Jojen says that route is not for them. As the Hound's captive, Arya considers smashing his face in with a rock, but they're kind of stuck on a road together, because he actually intends to take her to the twins and sell her back to Robb and Catelyn, which is who she wants to see anyway. Dany and co scout out the sellswords the Astapori have hired before they go to war, and they're a group called the Second Sons. She invites their three leaders up to her tent to see if they want to come over to her side, but they're not interested, although one of their leaders, Daario Naharis, does linger for another look. Back at the camp, they discuss how Dany's unsullied army would be tough to defeat, and decide to send Daario in the dead of night to assassinate her instead. That night he slips into the camp all right, but he's bought the heads of the other two leaders, swears to her beauty, and brings the second sons over to her side. Melisandre returns to Dragonstone with Gendry in tow, and it's hinted that she means to burn him. Davos perseveres in learning to read, and Stannis pops down to the cells for a visit. He's seen a vision in the flames of a battle in the snow, and wants Davos back as hand as long as he doesn't try to kill the priestess again, who in the meantime has sex with Gendry, leeches him, and then has Stannis throw them into the fire as a spell to kill Robb, Balon, and Joffrey, the other remaining kings. Marjorie and Cersei put on their smiles for Sansa and Tyrion's wedding day, despite one threatening to have the other one strangled, and Joff leads Sansa into the sept, but takes a stall that Tyrion needed in a dick move to spoil the moment, forcing Sansa to kneel in order to be cloaked. Sansa is as ever hostage to the situation, and Tyrion resolves to get drunk. Tywin as ever despises his ways and warns Tyrion he better consummate the wedding with Sansa and get her with child. Loras and Cersei are both equally miserable at the prospect of each other, and drunk Joffrey suggests raping Sansa later that evening. However, drunk Tyrion threatens to cut his cock off in front of everyone. But when it comes to the bedding, Tyrion can't quite bring himself to have sex with a 14-year-old girl against her will. Well done. Gilly, Sam and the babe hole up in a shack for the night, but drawn by the sound of crows, Sam ventures out to discover a white walker that's come for the baby. Despite his fear and the fact that these things can shatter steel with a touch, Sam stabs it with the dragonglass dagger he found at the fist of the first men. Weakness discovered. Daario plans to sneak into Astapor with the unsullied captain, Grey Worm, and Ser Jorah, and open the gates from within, seeing as the Yunkai don't realise he's changed sides. They're great fighters and return to report that the city is now theirs. Ser Jorah is distraught to realise, however, that Daario is now Dany's favourite. Sam plans to take Gilly under the wall via an ancient secret passage near the Night Fort, another long-abandoned castle of the Watch. Bran and co hole up in an abandoned tower on the Gift while a storm comes in, while at the same time Jon and the wildlings are stealing horses. Their owner escapes and makes it to the same tower, but the wildlings are on him. Hodor freaks out at the sound of thunder, so Bran walks him silent before they're all discovered. Jon is made to kill the man to prove he's one of them, but instead he fights off the wildlings while Tormund stops Ygritte from making a bad choice. Bran inhabits the body of Summer to help, and Jon kills Orell the Warg while he's inhabiting the body of his eagle for a counterattack before barely escaping on a horse. And that night, once the coast is clear, Osha is going to depart with Rickon towards the Umbers for safety, while Bran, Jojen and Mira continue on. Robb plans a bold move to strike at Casterly Rock, the home of the Lannisters, in order to destabilise their position in the war. But first, everybody has to eat some humble pie back at the Twins and apologise to Lord Frey for Robb marrying Talisa instead. He's made to apologise to each of Frey's many daughters, whilst Edmure tries to guess which one is meant for him. Walder Frey is a sour vulture who gives them all lip, but they stay cool and it's time for a wedding. And in order to get to that Frey-Tully wedding, the Hound steals a butcher's cart, but Arya stops him from killing the man he's robbed. They make their way up in the day and she looks at the twins, eager to reunite with her family. And turns out Edmure's wife is pretty cute, so that's a relief for him. The drums beat loudly in the celebration hall and things might be okay. Lord Bolton doesn't drink, however, and once Edmure and Rosalind are packed off for the bedding, something doesn't sit right with Catelyn. Then the band play a Lannister song, and she discovers Bolton is wearing armour. Walder Frey announces his wedding gift to Robb, and all of a sudden the Freys are killing everyone, including stabbing Talisa right in the baby. Outside they kill Robb's direwolf, and Arya catches sight of this before the Hound drags her away from the slaughter. Inside the murder zone, Catelyn grabs Walder's wife and pleads for her son's life, but Bolton gives the final blow. The Lannisters give their regards. So Catelyn kills the girl, and with absolutely nothing left, she just stands there until someone takes her life. Outside the castles, it's slaughter. Frey's and Bolton's Dreadfort men are killing Starks everywhere. The Hound escapes the scene with Arya as the head of Robb's direwolf is paraded about on the body of his corpse. Back down at King's Landing, on a very basic level, Tyrion and Sansa are just about managing to get along, until the small council celebrate the success of their plot with Walder Frey. Joffrey wants to serve Robb's head to Sansa at his wedding feast, but Tyrion won't have it. The young king gets all antsy at everyone, so Tywin proves his real power and has Joffrey sent to bed. Sansa is of course miserable again. Gloating over the mess at the Twins, Roose Bolton is now Warden of the North, and Walder Frey has the backing of the Lannisters. Turns out it's Bolton's bastard son Ramsay who's been torturing Theon all of this time, and having broken his spirit, he gives Theon a new name, Reek. He also posts Theon's dick back to his family on the the Iron Islands telling them to leave the north. And despite Balon not caring, Yara picks her fastest ship and an elite team of men to bring Theon home. Bran, Hodor and the Reeds reach the night fort by the wall. They make camp, but in the dead of night they hear something coming up from deep inside the well. But it's just Sam and Gilly heading the other way for Castle Black. Sam realizes this is Jon's younger brother, so he shows them the secret route, gives them some dragonglass daggers, and they part ways on their separate journeys. Sam makes it back to Castle Black to tell Maester Aemon what went down at the Fist and the Keep, and they send out all of their ravens to warn of the others and beg the realm for help. Down on Dragonstone, Davos continues his reading lessons and discovers one of the ravens' messages just as word of Robb's death reaches them. He still implores Stannis not to burn Gendry for blood magic, but Melisandre has his ear on the topic, so in secret he sends Gendry off in a boat to save the boy's life. Mel is furious at him for saving one innocent life but risking the doom of thousands in a prolonged war. For treason, Stannis is about to sentence him to die, but Davos warns of what's happening up on the wall and the coming of the others. And this is actually the true war that Melisandre has been on about all along. Varis offers Shae money to leave Westeros and start a new life. He believes that Tyrion is one of the few people able to make the realm a better place, but not if he has complications like her floating around. No dice. Arya is back on the road and kills a Frey man for gloating about the Red Wedding, forcing the Hound to kill the others. After getting so near and yet so far, revenge and murder seems to be all that she has left. Ygritte catches up with Jon and they have an emotional farewell while she's peppering him with arrows. He just about makes it to Castle Black to meet back with his friends. And Jaime gets back to King's Landing with Qyburn and Brienne in tow and reunites with Cersei. While over at Astapor, all of the freed slaves come out to praise Dany and call her their mother. Now with 2 armies, the remaining Dothraki, the sellswords and her dragons, her power grows even more. So Theon's being tortured, Sansa's married to Tyrion, and Arya's dying on the inside while she's hanging out with the Hound. Jon has made it to Castle Black in order to warn of the wildlings, and while Bran isn't far away, Stannis is also looking to the north whilst Dany grows in strength. However, Robb and Catelyn are dead. So what the fuck happens now? Oh my god. Thanks a lot as ever for watching, guys. I hope you've enjoyed having Game of Thrones Season 3 crammed inside of you. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe because YouTube is a heartless numbers machine and it really helps me out. I'll see you guys next time.